Now, lifeadministration.com presents the Life Administration Podcast. Here are your hosts, Leslie Loftus and Ryan Taylor.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Life Administration Podcast. My name is Ryan Taylor, and with me, as always, is
Leslie Loftus. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. We're back. We're rolling. We have continuous content. We have episodes in the tank. We're recording new episodes. So,
we're feeling back in the rhythm.
We're back in the flow.
Yeah.
It's really good. So happy that you're with us today. Excited for what we're talking about. It's a cool topic because we actually just sort of got into it. So it's funny that you brought this up. And
good. Well, I was honestly doing it just because it's kind of a secondary topic.
Yep.
So it didn't really go in the first, home management stuff and everything that we were doing last year. And I always knew it would be like a second tier topic, but it's almost spring. So at least certainly in 4 weeks or so when this airs, everybody's going to be thinking about spring. So
yes.
We're talking gardening.
But before that, what's new and exciting? Anything that you have to report to our faithful?
Okay, and he's looking at me like I have something.
No, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Good. I'm like, did I bring up something? Because I'm suddenly blanking. No, I mean, it's kind of
something. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, starting to get the first twinges. Here we are, almost a year from the time that so my daughter had some teeth pulled, like I call it the last normal day.
Mm-hmm.
So that was on a Wednesday, and then she wasn't feeling that great the next day, still groggy and all that, and sore and everything. So I kept her home on Thursday, and then Friday was the day that school shut down, and then there's spring break after that, and we're going to come back after spring. Well, we didn't, So the day of her surgery was the last normal day, right? And that was early March. And so here we are, early February, 11 months on, and I'm starting to just a little bit normal.
Yeah.
Starting to feel a little bit normal.
Yeah.
Or like
good.
Normal's, at the end of the tunnel, and the tunnel is no longer so long.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be fun to go back and, you're a time traveler from a year in the future, and you go back and they say, oh, we're going to be closed down for a week and then we're going to come back. Like, you guys have, everyone just shooting from the hip. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like, nobody really.
What was it? 14 days to slow the spread?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. So, yes, how things have changed. But yes, it does definitely feel like there is a twinge of normalcy.
A few things have normal coming back to them.
Yeah.
And, even when we're gathering, say at church, and we're still, spread out and socially distant, we still have masks and stuff. There's a few more people even coming. It's starting to feel a little bit more normal. We're starting to look at and say, you know what? Come next fall, we actually will be able to have proper gatherings in people's homes again, especially as the next. So we're still at the phase when we're recording today. The 2 vaccines are out, and the 2 next are getting.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at kind of final approval and should be coming out soon. And they're easier to distribute.
Right.
So
yeah, they don't have to keep them freezing cold,
right, exactly.
sub-zero temperatures,
and
or
jab
whatever
you
it
twice to get effective.
Yeah,
right.
One and done. So that's pretty cool. I think for me, where the normalcy sort of lied was when I watched the NFC and the AFC championship games, footballs, and there were people in the stands, and there had been some teams that didn't do it, some teams that did do it, but
some teams that got creative and put cardboard people in the stands.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I had been listening to this piped in crowd noise for so long that I sort of just became immune to it, and then you'd see that no one's in the stands, that would kind of rattle you. But to hear actual fans, and not like, there was a good amount. Like, this isn't like, we let 5,000 people in. We had to do crowd noise anyway, because 5,000 people can't make any noise. That was a cool moment. It was like, okay, like, there's still plenty of spaces between families and all that sort of stuff. But it was nice to just see people in the stands cheering and like, okay, like, we'll take this, we'll take this. So anyway, very cool. So we're talking about gardening today. Now, full disclosure, right out of the gates, this guy, not a green thumb.
Black thumbs.
Yes.
Wilted thumbs.
I mean, I have a hard time keeping my grass alive. You know what I mean? Like, And this is not from a lack of effort. A lot of times it's just a lack of knowledge. And this reminds me a lot of cooking in the sense of the more you do it, the better you get at it.
It is a lot like that. It's also like cooking in another way is that it never really ends.
Yeah.
That's another thing. So you think, oh, I've put in that bed over there. And yeah, okay, now it's with rare exception, there's called zero escaping so that you can have something that in fact can sort of go on its own. But even then you've got to, get weeds and pests out of it and stuff like that. So gardening is never done. It's a constant.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of, once you know some of the basics of how to do it, it gets much, much easier. But oh goodness gracious, wolfhound's moving. Please don't knock over the lights.
Nothing to see here, dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk dirt.
Okay.
Let's talk dirt.
Let's talk dirt. All right. So since it is a lot like cooking and there's a lot of little tiny skills to learn and stuff like this, my best advice is when you're starting with a garden, first timers, start out small and build out. So let's say if you're moving into an apartment or something like this could be as simple as just a few pots on your balcony.
Absolutely.
Kind of like start there, start to get some of the basics and the rhythms of gardening and how often you have to water stuff and what your weather is like and get that going. And then you can say, oh, okay, well, I've gotten this little balcony area here that now I can spread out and I can do something else in the yard. Or maybe it's, okay, I'm going to start with that bed in the corner and I'm going to make a bed right there. Kind of depends on your plan, which we're going to get talking about in a second.
Yeah.
But start small. Build out. There's really no reason that you need to go and come up with the grand design. First of all, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Like coming up with, and especially if you're moving into a house instead of say an apartment, coming up with a full landscape plan. Well, that's if you're hiring landscape architects and stuff, because you can do this. You can get into tens of thousands of dollars really quickly. For most of us, there's no need. And also I recommend the next episode we're going to do is your first apartment, your first homestead after college and or parents. And a lot of this stuff I'm going to recommend start small to learn. So think this is the gardening episode of that. Start small with the gardening so you can learn some of the stuff.
Yeah. So when Lauren and I decided like we're going to grow things, right? Like I think the first step was in our backyard. Lauren said, we're going to grow cannas. My grandmother's always had cannas. They're easy.
Canna lilies. Right.
Yeah. Right. So that's what we're going to do. And, we go back and I mean, it was nice like for 3 months, but things start dying and they falling. Like we had just no idea what we were getting into. And all of a sudden this area that was supposed to be a nice like center point of our backyard all of a sudden was like, please, for the love of God, don't look over there. You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, absolutely terrible. So we kept going on the canna train, but then we read somewhere, and I'm sure it was on the internet, so it must be true, that NASA says that if you have like one plant for every X amount of square feet, like that's really good. So we're like, okay, let's just do inside plants. And that even on its own, like you just think inside plants, like there are issues with like mites and humidity and proper watering. And this plant takes this amount of sunlight and all that sort of stuff.
Right. And south windows and north windows and no windows.
Yeah.
And
so
air plants. And
this is definitely like, I'm a big research guy. Like I like to research before I buy things or whenever I'm going to do something new. And sometimes I can sort of go overboard with research. This is not really one of those things, I think. Like this is one of those things where you would be wise to, I like this kind of plant, understand the plant. What does it need? What is it susceptible to? That sort of thing. And then go buy the plant.
Okay. I'm going to give you an analogy here because that's generally right, except for remember when you've, baby's coming and you had to go shop for car seats.
Yes.
And you walk in and there are 15,000, it seems like 11 badillion car seat options.
That's a big number of car seats.
But there's a whole ton of options. Okay. So you kind of have to go back and you have to say, okay, what do I actually want to do?
Right.
You know, what kind of car seat do I need one that I can, you know, that I can have multiple bases because we have different cars that are going to be the baby's traveling in, or is the baby just going to be in one? Like, so you start to narrow it down because you can. If you start working on an individual plants, you're going to quickly get into, oh crap, there's so you can just get overwhelmed with the amount of information that you need. So I also recommend not only starting small, but start with a plan. And first of all, the purpose of your plan. You know, what do you want to grow? Do you want an edible garden? Do you want a flower garden? Do you need a privacy garden, like a hedge between you and your neighbors? Do you want to grow just indoor plants?
Mm-hmm.
So first, before you start doing some of that research, at least figure out what your phase one is. And for some people, it'll be, okay, I want to grow indoor plants. For some people, it'll be, I want to grow herbs on my balcony. You know, you could do and if you decide to do all of those things, I need a privacy thing, and I want edible, and I want a cutting garden for flowers. But I'm only going to do it on my balcony.
Right.
Like, so when you're phasing it in and starting small, bind in something.
Yeah.
Bind in something. I'm only going to grow herbs.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to grow all the stuff, but I'm only going to do it in a small space on my balcony. Give yourself some bounds, because otherwise, when you start doing the research, there's so much.
You have to have
very
purpose.
much. Yes.
And that was the thing. Like, we were like, okay, we're going to do indoor plants. So now we can go from there. You know what I mean? So it's like, we want to get this kind of tree. Like, what kind of tree is going to grow inside? You know, that sort of stuff. So it's, you just have to, you do have to have your framework, right? This is what we're planning on doing.
Freedom within the framework.
Freedom within your framework. Exactly. But you got to have the framework, or otherwise you're off the rails.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Now and this goes for indoor plants as well, although a little bit less so, because you can kind of fudge this one a bit depending. First thing you really need to research is not the plant stuff. You need to research your zone. So the actually all of the world, but in the United States, we're divided up into various growing zones. And so you can go Google these, you can find the growth zones on, but you have temperate zones, you have tropical zones, and they look a little bit like a weather map or a heat temperature map during the summer. And it will tell you what zone you're in. Now, most stores. So if you're going to a nursery, a gardening store, or if you're buying stuff online, I would recommend more seeds online than plants.
Yes.
But, and then also buy seeds from reputable places. But let's say you're going to something like Park Seed or whatever, and you're buying some seeds online for tomatoes or whatever. You enter your zone. Like you say, I want zone 9 tomatoes, and they just give you zone 9 tomatoes, because it does you no good if you were in zone 9 to get stuff that's not hardy below zone 4. Okay, hardiness we'll talk about. Hardiness, heat tolerance is lots of plants melt at a certain level of heat. And other plants, like tropical plants, are like, oh, we can totally take the humidity and the heat. So they have a higher heat tolerance than some of the more delicate violas and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's why you don't see palm trees in New England, right?
Right. Exactly. It's just not going to work. And then hardiness is the freeze tolerance, because other plants can, I can live in the freeze. And then other things, their vascular system freezes up, busted, and bye-bye plant.
Canis.
Yes, exactly. So
they're all dead in one night. What happens? I mean, covered or not, it didn't matter. Those babies.
Because that's the other thing. Even when you have plants that can handle a little. Okay, so it's going to be a freeze tonight. So we have tropical plants. This happens a lot in Houston, by the way. We are in zone 9, and then sometimes you can get really specific to your area in zone 9A, zone 9B. And you can find soil maps online that'll kind of tell you. So that's more when you're doing yard stuff and not indoor stuff. But let's say a plant is freeze hardy to, freezing, 32. Okay. Yeah, you can cover it up and you can probably make it through a 30. But if it gets below like the covering it up with sheets and even putting a light bulb in there, which I don't know if any of you heard of that, but yeah, give it a little bit of a heat source. All you need to do is keep the temperature up to its level, its tolerable level, and you might be fine. But if it goes much below like 2 degrees, whatever that plant's floor is, iffy. And here's the other one. And this is how Houstonians a lot of times get plants that are, we get plants that will freeze and then will come back, because even when we go into a hard freeze, say 28, yeah, that's a hard freeze for us.
People in Minnesota are like, come on,
whatever.
Dude. Yeah,
come on,
get
dude.
out
Exactly.
of here.
It'll only stay there for a couple of hours in the middle of the night. Okay. So if you're hitting 28 between 3 and 4 a.m. on one night, it kind of depends what your plant is. If your plant happens to be near the heater vent or the dryer or something like that, or a wall where there's still some heat radiating out from it, or if you get it covered properly, yeah, you're probably fine. If it goes 28 3 nights in a row, we're saying that plant's not going to make it.
Kiss it goodbye.
Kiss it goodbye. Right. But this is why we also say start slow, so you know this stuff. You learn kind of, okay, yeah, that's not going to, I can't push that, or, really the weather patterns in my specific area, or the way the wind blows through my specific yard. I can't push the heat tolerance or the why keep forgetting the term for the freezing?
I don't know. You said hardy.
Yeah. Hardiness.
Okay.
Tolerance and hardiness.
I am listening.
You are listening. Yes. Those are the two terms for it. And I just keeps blanking out of my head. But yeah, sometimes depending on the lay of your land, you're going to need to stay completely in your zone. And other times you can push it just a little bit on the edge. But practice is the only way you're going to know this. And again, start small. Do the initial research on your zone. Now, I also recommend for new garden planning, set up some sort of outdoor space where you can lounge about. Okay. Like actual relaxing space in your yard. Because, for instance, as we have all just learned in the pandemic, it doesn't matter how nice your indoors are and stuff like that. If you are stuck inside and you're crawling the walls, even if you can go out to a hammock between 2 trees or whatever, or the futon that's on your little balcony, something to get outside, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So go ahead and in your initial plan, at least plan for that outdoor space. And it can be, let's say you've got a new house. It can be something as simple as you put some sand down, that's for leveling, and some flagstones down, and a small cafe table and 2 chairs.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be super fancy. And then you wall off the space, or not wall off this, but you kind of mark off the space, not only with the flagstones, but maybe a couple of pots of, there you go. There's your herbs, and you've got a few flowers you can cut, and we're done.
Yeah.
Like for phase 1.
Phase 1 complete.
Right. Phase 1 complete. And then you can use a little bit while you're thinking through phase 2 and 3. And you know what? We really do love sitting outside. So we'd really like to get a bigger, because we'd love to be able to all sit at. So we need a table that seats 4 or 5.
Right.
So that we can have, mimosas on Saturday morning. Have friends over. I have a feeling that we're all going to be having a lot more people over after the pen, because we're just all so stir crazy right now. So, we do want to do a little entertaining out on this space, so you can modify the space that you've already started. Or, you know what? We don't use that much. So that's fine just the way it is. So let's go ahead and work on bedding or trees or whatever else.
30-second commercial break.
Go for it. 30-second commercial break.
I miss newspapers for that one reason. There's something for me about reading a newspaper outside
with a cup of coffee.
With a cup of coffee, you got your outdoor aesthetics. They're working for you. Mm-hmm. It's just not the same with your phone or a tablet or a computer or something like that. It was just
newspapers had a certain smell.
Yeah,
and
they had rattled, the smell. Yep,
and they were kind of unruly, so you had to
deal with the wind. And it was like you try to read the same sentence 6 times because the top edge keeps folding over and stuff. But just, I say that to the point of, if you're going to create this space, you need to enjoy it, right? Like, you don't go, okay, that's done, and then you go inside and hang out. Like, you will also get inspiration for phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, whatever that looks like for you. Everybody's situation is going to be different, but just being out there and in it is going to help what you're seeing, right? Like what you're you're looking for as far as where do I go from here?
Right. How do you use it? You might surprise yourself at how little or how much you use or you want to use outdoor space. And then that's going to dictate if you're one of those people don't really use it that much. Well, then you're not going to, you're going to go spend more budget and time, say, redoing your sitting room. Whereas if, gosh, we really, given an option, we prefer to be outside all the time. So you're turning your sitting room into your outdoor sitting room, right?
Absolutely.
And then you're worrying about things like, how do I make sure that my sitting room is still sittable when it's raining or, yeah.
Exactly. So it's a really great point. And I just want to emphasize it, that it doesn't have to be this super fancy, Better Home and Gardens kind of situation.
It doesn't need to be Pinterest photo ready.
No. Mm-hmm. It just needs to be a place to just like hang out, And like you said, as time grows, and it certainly did for us, then we added a table. Then we added more chairs. Don't underestimate, if you get a table, like get you an umbrella. You know what I mean? Like get an umbrella for both when it's hot and when it rains. Like it's
right.
just
you need to think through the shade and the
you just gotta know that kind of stuff going into it.
And part of that depends on your own climate and location.
Yeah. Nice.
So cool.
Anything else as far as planning the garden is concerned, planning it out?
I don't know. Do you have anything that you did in this last? So, because y'all just went for, we have to have cannas because that's what grandma had. And so you just planted a bunch in the middle. So do you have any regrets or insights now from what you would have done?
I just wish you would have slowed down. Like I wish that we would have thought, I guess we didn't know how much work it was going to be. So the leaves start falling off and they're gray. So you got to go cut them. And then, the little critters that go back there. And then, they're kind of like fragile. So like if you have dogs that you like to play fetch with and you have an errant throw that goes in the cannas and then
the dog doesn't care. The dog's not going to.
Your new puppy just kills them all.
How's the puppy, by the way?
He's come a long way.
6 months now?
No, he's like 3 months, 4 months. He's very young still. I mean, we got him before he could even be adopted.
Oh, and I guess it was just Christmas and it's only February.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. No,
I'm speeding up time too much.
Yeah, and we got him before you're normally able to get puppies because we fostered him and then we fostered into adoption, right? Okay. So that's why, but he's still pretty. Yeah, Maverick is young and he's spunky and
he's still falling over himself when he goes to get balls.
Like, when you throw a ball, he just goes head over tea kettle, just like he actually does a flip every time. So speaking of dogs, this should be interesting.
Yeah, we're going to have the dog episode today. Yep. Sorry, Ro has been up here with us and she's been moving around quite a bit and I don't know what's going on downstairs that has Reagan.
There was like some sort of yelp. Yeah. So in any case, he's doing good. But like that's a consideration that we didn't think about, and we had Rufus beforehand. So like every once in a while, the cannas would take a little bit of a beating.
Rufus was an older and mellow dog,
right?
So exactly. You forget. Oh shoot.
So it's just like it's those kinds of things. Like if you have potted plants that are up on a like a little table or a stand or something like that. If you have kids that sometimes fall down or like that pot can get smashed and you have to kind of like take it from the ground up there. You know what I mean? So,
and pots are an interesting thing because you can't necessarily leave them flat on the ground because then they won't drain properly. Right. So you need them lifted up even if the hole in them and all, but the water has to be drained out. So you have to have a little space. And then of course there's all sorts of like riser things that, some of them are 6 inches high. Some of them are a foot or taller high. Well, you can see how toddlers can
easily.
Right. And then there's other that are just little feet that just lift it up, say half an inch.
And that's where the dog comes in. Right. So it's just, you just got to know those things kind of going into it. And I think, and I have some stuff for planting the garden. So you just got to think through that sort of stuff and just know that this is not like, it's not just a one and done. And like I said it earlier with the cooking analogy, like it's a constant sort of attention. And then, like when it comes to watering and like how much water and do I have to give it food? Do I not give it food? We had we went to the garden center, bought who knows how many pots, right? and they didn't have holes in the bottom. Well, what the heck do we know about drilling holes in the bottom of plants, right? So all those plants died. And then it was like, oh, you have to drill holes. So go get your drilled. And then is the hole big enough?
By the way, and drilling in terracotta is
you need a special drill bit.
Right. You need to stress. Right.
Yeah.
So be aware. If you're getting a vessel for, say, a water feature, you're getting a vessel to be an outside, you're going to replace the plant in it on a regular basis. Then you can get one of those that doesn't have the drain holes. But otherwise,
you need holes.
You need the holes.
You need the holes. So,
and you don't want to drill them yourself unless you were already proficient with masonry drills.
Yeah, it takes I mean, I definitely broke the first pot that I did, but it takes a special drill bit at a good speed with the right amount of pressure. It's definitely like a feel kind of thing. But you're never gonna, if you do it on your own, you're going to break the pot. Like you don't know until you do it. It's like driving stick. Like you don't know like how the car stalls until it stalls on you the first time in the middle of a 35, speed. Right.
And you're like, well, shoot, now there's not much you can do about it now. Right.
Now I know where the clutch is, right? Okay. Now I can work through it and figure it out. But until then,
well, and here's the other thing with gardening. Remember, it will change. First of all, if we're talking to some very new starting people, well, you have an apartment, you've made a garden on your balcony. Well, most of that, you're going to want that to be portable to go with you to your next apartment because you're probably not going to stay in there a lot, right? You're buying your first house and so you're setting it up and, it's you and your spouse and, you're setting it up with your little seating area outside, but eventually you and your spouse becomes you and your spouse and a kid, and kid gardening is, a dog or a kid like we were just talking about. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of resources you can find for planning cool spaces for kids in the garden, right? Everything from little hedges that you could make into, they're forms that you can like grow a vine over and make a little hobbit hole for your kids. Like, little tiny stuff like that is really cool in your garden and with a little bit of advanced play, but it's constant change. Yes. So, you get another reason why I'm recommending, especially for younger people, to phase it in. Yeah. Phase it in, because what you're going to need out of your garden now, it might not be the same thing that you need out of it 2 years from now. Yeah. And then really just the last thing is the pruning of the garden, right? Like understanding that not only with the feeding and the watering and all that sort of stuff, that the work that is going to come into, you have this tree. I know the Ro is going crazy today. Yeah, she is. You have this, something that's growing a certain way and it's starting to look really good, but it's affecting other plants. And he's like, okay, well, sorry, dude. And you got to cut it, right? Because you're looking at a holistic picture and not just, well, this one area is doing really good, so let's focus on that one. No. Yeah. No, that's a recipe for disaster later on down the line. Right. And you're going to need to layer all of these rhythms into pruning, planting, cutting under you're going to need to layer those back into your to-do list. Yeah. So back when we were talking about those things that you need to do, say weekly, monthly, yearly, a lot of those things, once you get into gardening, are going to be gardening kind of things. And there are all sorts of variety and they're seasonal, so this is the one that you do in the fall. This is the one that you do in the spring. But as you start to plan out your garden, when you're doing your research, say on the plants that you're coming up with, and that'll, they'll have dates in there for, okay, this is when you start these seeds. But now we're starting to getting into the actual planting. Yeah, so I was going to say, and last thing about planting a garden is make sure that you're able to mow or weed whack in a way that's not going to damage the garden, right? So you want to make sure that you give yourself enough space, right? So like even still like thinking about the direction, like if you're, like me who has a mower and the stuff sort of kicks out the side, well, like rocks and all sorts of stuff gets in there. So, you don't make sure that the blower side isn't going towards, right? Like there's just these little things that like, as you're mowing the grass, you don't even really think about, you get your headphones in, you're listening to our podcast or something like that, and you're just out there mowing the grass and all of a sudden, a rock comes in and
hits a pot or kills a plant because
Mhm.
it just came and hit the right direction at the right time, or you're weed whacking, same thing. You got your headphones on
Mhm.
and
you cut the root of
you-
that sapling tree that yeah.
You're right, because you've been weed whacking for 35 minutes or so, and now it's starting to get a little heavy. You're not as controlled with the movement, so maybe you start there, and then if like you ding the fence, well, that's not that big of a deal, right? Like who cares, right? But so those little.
But the new
sorts
avocado
of
tree you just planted from the cutting, or not the cutting from the sprouting you did with the bulb, you're going to be like.
Right, because you're tired and maybe you had a couple beers while you're out there doing the yard work. And there's
3 months of patient waiting until it was ready to actually plant in the ground. Gone with the weed whacker.
So yeah, there's just because that happens. That happens because I'm speaking from experience. Like I know it's like that corner, dude. What was I thinking? So I wasn't thinking because I hadn't done this before. So trying to save y'all a little bit of pain and. From my mistakes.
Right, but now we're getting to the planting.
Yes, we're
plant.
Yeah.
So we planned it now.
Planting the plants.
Planting the plants. We've planned it out now. We kind of have an idea of what our phase 1 is going to be. So now we need to go.
Let's do it.
Start getting it done.
Yep.
Again, even if you're doing the small balcony one, so go in phases.
Yep.
Go in phases because it's kind of amazing how we're going to use a balcony garden. I think to start just because. Mainly because I have it in my head because we're doing the first apartment kind of thing next. Yeah. And so I'm thinking of a balcony space. And it's even just setting up a balcony space. That's a weekend project.
Absolutely.
Easily. That's if you already have the stuff, like where you're going to go get the stuff. You don't have to actually research where. That's after you've done the planning. The actual doing of it is a long weekend job. So go in phases. You don't have to do it all at one pop, right?
Yep. I know. We have dogs here.
Yes, we do. We do.
And an episode on honestly, dog.
Oh, we will do an episode on dog and pet care. But honestly, we've been lucky. We're 60, 70 episodes into this, and they've mainly done as much noise as they're doing today, 2 or 3 other times.
Yeah.
When we first started this, we were imagining it was going to be a lot worse. And in fact,
it's been good for the most part.
But yeah, the dogs today know that we're talking about dirt.
Yeah,
clearly.
Obviously, I can go dig. And there goes Ro. Okay, planting the garden. We're moving. Yes. We're just we're
Sorry
heading
about
through.
the steps. Ryan's going to get most of it out, I'm sure. Okay. Your research is going to help a lot here in helping you phase in things. So for instance, if you have decided you want to plant an herb garden and a small flower cutting garden on your balcony and then have a small seeding space, just as an example, when you order the seeds or you go, most nurseries in your area, if you're picking up seeds at a grocery store or at a nursery in your area, they're probably only going to carry the seeds that will grow well in your area. Certainly if they carry other ones, don't go to that nursery anymore. They don't know what they're doing. Also it's totally fine to get the little pots that they've already started, the seedlings and stuff like that. But if you're ordering online, again, get the seeds. And on the package, it will come with the dates of these are the times that you need to go ahead and germinate the seeds so that you can have, so that they'll grow at the ideal time for your zone. Okay, great. So that will help you with your phasing because then you'll know, for instance, okay, you know what? This weekend we can go ahead and we can plant all the seeds that we're going to do. So that means we need to go get the pots. And so we go get the pots, we go get the dirt that we need. Again, your research will kind of help you with, honestly, you will find lots of things that, you need this kind of soil and you need this kind of soil and this kind of preparation. At the beginning, start with plain old potting soil.
Yeah.
1, it's cheaper. 2, you would be surprised at some of the fertilizer stuff, is too much, and it can burn your plant. And then you don't actually have a brown thumb. You were just trying to be really conscientious and get the good stuff, and you ended up just burning the roots.
Yeah.
Just get the regular potting. So, try planting bare.
Honestly,
for the start, and then you'll see. Oh, you know what? That one does need a little bit of food. But
how did anyone ever grow anything before Miracle-Gro? Well, they did, right?
Yes, they did.
And you'll see it when you go to the store, especially when you start getting into different types of specialty soil, I guess we'll call it.
Orchid soil, violet soil, herb soil, vegetable soil,
4 to 5
soil.
times what just potting soil costs, right? So, and there's just, when you're starting, because the other thing, just like cooking, how it always goes and goes and goes and goes, there is a money investment here the longer that you do this, right? You got to know that. So like you can budget with, hey, this week I'm going to get X, Y, and Z. And then next week, like, don't go all and get it all in one shot, man. Cause like, you're just going to get burnt out. Just, you've said it a million times. I'm going to hop on it again. Start small because these things, like, they're going to take maintenance. You will have to start. And we certainly did have to start planning for, you're going to need more stuff in the sense of like, all of a sudden it's like you do this little thing, just like we talked about earlier. You do this thing, you have this little area, and then you think, you know what would be really nice around like this area is if we did black mulch. So now you go to the store and you pick up, 10 bags of black mulch, and that's $30 that you just sort of there it goes. Right. So you just got to kind of know that this
and by
is
the way,
be
now
an
you're
investment.
kind of locked into black mulch for the rest of your garden because you wouldn't really mix.
Right.
Like to make it look like, so once again, while you plant, that's why you do the planning at the beginning.
Yes.
And then you can phase it. So now you've decided you're going to do your balcony garden. You've decided you're going to do it herbs and some cutting flowers. So you order the seeds, then you can go to the store and you can get the pots and the soil, and you can kind of arrange them out on the balcony the way and even maybe while you're waiting for the seeds to arrive, because they take a couple of days, Amazon and all that stuff. Actually, I wouldn't order them. I would order seeds directly from reputable seed places. But anyway,
take that, Bezos.
Well, lots of people have had bad experience ordering seeds from. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas I have a couple of seed catalogs that I have used and we've been very happy with. And there's one or two local ones. So if we want to plant a tree, there's like 2 tree nurseries that we like to use. So again, as we always say, ask around. You might find that, if one of your new apartment, but neighbors, great conversation starters. Clearly based upon his or her balcony, they have a great green thumb. Ask them where they go and do their garden shopping, right?
Yep.
Okay. So you can, while you've ordered the seeds, now you've got a day or two before they come in where you can go to the nursery and get the pots and get the soil and then kind of get it set up and, just maybe spend a day or two paying attention to how the sun actually hit it. Because, the basil is going to want more sun than, that other stuff is going to want. So, and then when your seeds come in, you're ready to. There's a difference between direct sowing and germinating in the little cups. We don't need the little cups. I'll talk about that in a second. But so sometimes you're going to want to germinate seeds inside in little individual things, and then you'll plot the plugs after they've sprouted a little bit. This would basically be like going to the nursery and buying one of the small sprouts of basil, say, that's 2 inches high, and planting that. You can do that yourself by getting basil seeds and and then just germinating them yourself.
Yeah. It's just more, it's a timing thing more than anything else.
It's just a slightly different timing thing.
Yeah.
But, already we're looking at about a week of time from, ordering the stuff, then getting the equipment like the pots and the soil and placing that out where you want. And then while you're waiting for the seeds to actually sprout, now I'm going to go and I'm going to look for, I'm going to go to the thrift shop and look for the futon that I was going to put on the balcony to make a little seating area,
Thrift shop futon. I mean, hey.
Hey, I'm trying to think budget wise. And, right now, anyway. Sorry, there's a whole lot of stuff that people are doing with pallets these days.
Yes.
So reclaimed pallets and stuff like
my house, my daughter's bed was made on a pallet, her first bed.
Exactly. So there's tons of really cool seating, like couches and areas, that you can see that not that expensive. A couple of pallets, a can of paint, a futon mattress, and boom, a couple of throw blankets. And as long as it's covered from the rain, like this is perfect balcony kind of stuff. Not that time consuming, not that expensive, nice and cozy, and just kind of, anyway, I'm just using it as my example right now. You're just giving me a hard time. But you can see how you can kind of layer things in because, again, I like the cooking analogy a lot. It's very much like cooking. While you're waiting for the water to boil, you can go ahead and clean up the stuff from all of the vegetables that you chopped for the stew or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You can layer in your gardening tasks like that.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm on board.
Budget also help guides with the phasing because, well, for instance, you might not, okay, so let's say your balcony garden. So you're going to need half a dozen terracotta pots. You're going to need a couple of bags of soil. You're going to need this many seeds. And then you have a plan for, let's say, a small cafe table that seats 4. Even on a small balcony garden like this, you can get, depending on how fancy you are, you're into $1,000, $2,000 quickly.
Yeah, it's like on the small side, it's a couple hundred. On the big side, it's a couple thousand. Right?
Exactly. So 1, you need to figure out that. 2, depending on your budget, whether your budget is $500, your budget is $1,500, you most likely don't have it to spend in one go.
Right.
Right.
And nor should you.
Right. Nor should gardening is just not the kind of thing that if you have $1,500 that you could spend on gardening, right? Well, put 1,000 of that in savings and start with 500. Right. Start with 500 and do the phasing in, right? But so, some of the thing, because depending on how many pots you need and stuff, and seeds are usually relatively cheap. Depending on that kind of stuff, well, you can easily spend the $75 on that to start, and then spend 2 or 3 months saving for the cafe table and the 4 chairs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So your budget will also help you do the phasing. So look at the rhythms of how stuff is going to grow, seasons, and look at your budget and where and when you have time to spend money. And then you can start to come out with a phased plan of how to put this all together.
Yeah.
And it really, even putting together a small balcony garden, you can easily give yourself 4 months of major weekend project to get it started. And then you're doing a little bit of maintenance where you're, working with your seeds and your germination, and then you're getting them planted and you're getting them set exactly where they need to be for the sunlight. Well, and then you've got the next big project because you are going to put in, you need to put the cafe table together because it arrives in pieces. You got it from IKEA, and everything from IKEA arrives in pieces, right? So that's another weekend project of putting that stuff together, right? So, and then you have another, well, now you're getting to the stage where your plants are getting a little taller, or maybe if you did do direct seed germination, you need to pull some of them out. It's called thinning. So, because you don't want plants growing really, really close together. It's not a problem when they're tiny, but as they get bigger, well, then they crowd each other out and you have stuff dying, right? So you have to go in there and, you thin them out. You pull some of them up and say toodles.
It hurts, but you got to do it.
It hurts, but you got to do it. So that so you have 3 basil plants that'll survive instead of 30 that are all going to die.
Right.
When you do that for a couple of weeks, so you can easily spend, every 1 weekend a month where you're spending your full Saturday doing a gardening project, and the other weekends in a month where you're just spending, say an hour here or there doing a little bit of garden maintenance. But it's a rhythm that you need to come up with and, work through with on your to-do schedule, everything. Like you said, it's constant maintenance in a fun Zen-like way.
And that's the thing. So my last points really to add here were number 1, that you got to be doing this because you want to do it, right? You don't start a garden because you think it's like a cool idea. You know what I mean? Like, you do it because you're interested in it. You're going to have fun with it. You're willing to make the time commitment to it. And that leads into my second point is you got to schedule maintenance. You have to put it, whether you're going to do it on a calendar or a reminder or something like that. But this is not one of those things that you can say, oh, I plan on doing it Saturday morning, but then I didn't get to it. And a couple of days goes by, and all of a sudden, like, this can go. The
plant died because you didn't water it.
Yeah.
Because if you forgot it on Saturday morning, because you're watering it once a week, it's indoor plant once a week, just fine. Watering it on Saturday morning, but you've got Saturday morning. Oh, you remembered Sunday afternoon. Okay, plant will be fine.
Yep.
You can't bump it until the next Saturday, though.
No, because then you walk in on Thursday afternoon and you see leaves falling off of it, and it looks like it's been
Shriveling
in a microwave
up.
for 25 seconds. You're thinking, like, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, this thing that was supposed to be a positive is now a negative. So you just have to have rhythm, schedule, however you do it, and you have to be disciplined in it because, like I just said, it can go south really, really quickly.
I've got a quick rescue tip for. So let's say you did Saturday is your watering day, and you come in and your little ficus that you've been loving, and ficus is a little tropical tree that you a lot of times grow inside, and shoot, you did forget to water it on Saturday and Sunday, and so you come in on Thursday and it's looking pretty sad. Okay, you might be able to take the interior pot, because usually you've got that one in a cage pot. So take the pot that drains, that's now totally dried up, and you can even see that the soil is pulling away from the edge because the soil is smaller now because it has no water in it, right? Take it in there, cool water, douse the soil with cool water so that it soaks up and it'll run through again, douse it again, because the soil is a bit like a sponge. So if you just douse really dry soil with water, most of it's going to run right through because it has to,
it takes time.
It takes time to kind of soak it in and absorb it. Right. So you might have to hit it 2 or 3 times. And then if your plant is really, really wilty, take a shallow bowl, fill it up with water, and then sit the plant in water for a couple of hours so that the runoff from what you get, it gives the soil time to really soak up some water and gives the plant some intense water. What you're trying to do is save the vascular system of the plant, because if it gets so dry that its vessels collapse, well, then you can't do.
There's no coming back from
There's
that.
no coming back from
that. You can't
that.
uncollapse.
Right. You can't uncollapse them. But there's a stage when it's just getting really, really dry and those vessels are getting weak, and so where you can push them back out again. And so that's what you're doing. If the plant is able to be rescued, usually you can use this kind of reverse sponge method. And don't leave it in there for a long time. Like I said, a couple of hours. And if it's going to rescue, it will perk up. It will be visibly better looking in a couple of hours than it was when you came home and found it dying.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think I have one more. So I'm just going back and I'm thinking, where are all the big trip ups for me? And the last one was, sometimes you do everything that you're supposed to do and the plant still looks like it's in trouble, or you can't figure out. There are, like, it's not just water the plant, feed the plant, and it's all good. There are other things that can happen, right? So for us, one of the things that happened, I think they're called spider mites, right? They come into you can water it, you can do the thing, and it's actually it's a product of taking care of the plant, because you create this environment that is good for the plant to grow. Well, guess what?
It's good for the little bugs.
Yeah, little bugs like to come in there and do their thing, and they get all the nutrients from the soil, and your plant looks like it's going to die.
Right,
and so
it doesn't have anything.
So all of a sudden we discover neem oil, right? This is what we're going to use. It's not going to hurt the plant. It's going to kill us, right? But 3 months ago, I had no idea that neem oil even existed. I didn't even know what it was. You know what I'm saying? So if you're in that situation, you think, man, I'm done. I've done all the things. There might be something else going on. And that might be the time to say, okay, specifically on this plant or this area that I live in or something like that.
To reiterate, this is another reason why I'm suggesting phasing in, or starting small, because the neem oil kind of like herbs have their own set of little things that get to them. Cutting gardens for flowers have their own set of things that get to them. It's not all the same stuff. So if you limit yourself either to a few amount of things, say the plants on your balcony, okay, then you can kind of sort through that. Or if you're like, okay, well, we're working on indoor plants first, you're going to learn all of these things. But if you have indoor plants and outdoor plants and bedding plants and edible plants, and because the things that you use to kill bugs on edible plants, first of all, the bugs on edible plants are different. Second of all, the things that you can use to kill them are different, that all this, you can get yourself completely overwhelmed with information. And then you kind of give up on gardening because, oh my gosh, this was supposed to be fun. And this is way beyond my capacity. Again, start small. The little patio garden, the little garden by your front door, the herb garden you put on your deck, whatever it is, because there are a lot of tiny pieces to all of this gardening stuff. And you can get, like you said, you didn't know about neem oil.
Until you start digging for it. Right. So don't expect to go in like you're going to lose plants. Like plants are going to die. Like you got to know that going into it. There's no such thing as making the perfect omelet before you've ever cracked an egg. You know what I mean? Like it's just not, it doesn't happen. So you just make sure your expectations are good and that you're having fun. And as long as you're having fun and you know what you're getting into, you set your budget and you sort of stick to your preliminary zone to get things off the ground. Like you're gonna have a good time.
Right. And you're going to learn stuff.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, there is a satisfaction, as dumb as it might sound, you know, there's a satisfaction of like, look how good my plants are doing. You know?
Absolutely.
Like this is looking great right now.
There is a bit of okay, so you go in and it's time to say prune your plants or thin stuff out. Just going into your little garden and picking off the dead leaves and deadheading flowers. That's when you take the flowers that are wilting a little bit and you pick those off, because then the plant's inspired, if you will, to grow more flowers for you. It's very calming and relaxing.
Yeah. It's just you and the plants, man.
Right, exactly. And you're
you
kind
and the
of
plants. What pandemic? Yeah. You know? What pandemic? I'm out here. I'm pruning my garden, baby.
For a minute, I'm blank. My mind is just going, and I'm I'm getting the wilted leaves off of my basil and trimming back my thyme, and
and just like getting a big dose of mindfulness while you're at it. So
and good smells.
Absolutely. Closing thoughts.
Yes. One closing thought. One of my favorite ones. Remember, use what you have. You don't actually have to go out. And so seed trays, perfect example. If you were going to buy seeds and you're going to germinate the seeds indoors, which is usually, especially if you live in a very winter climate, that's what you have to do. It's not like you can do it outside. So there's all sorts of fancy seed trays and special pots, and you don't need any of that. Like, when you're starting out, you know what? If you need seed trays that are covered, berry punnets, the plastic ones, they have the draining for the berries so the berries don't get right. And then they have the clear lid. Take the label off of it. Put a little bit of soil in it there. You can do all sorts of plants. And it makes a little plastic reusable terrain. Yeah, reduce, reuse. You know how I love the reuse part of that.
Reuse, baby.
Don't go out and buy the special little pots that you can paper egg crates.
Yeah, for what?
A teaspoon of a half of soil, and you can germinate all your herbs in a paper egg crate. And then, by the way, just cut it apart and plant it, because it's perfect.
Yeah, it is perfect. It really is. Yeah, no, it is perfect.
Don't do it with styrofoam.
Look to see how like kids in 4th grade are doing their science projects for plants and use those things.
Yes.
Right? Like, honestly, that's how we did. Whatever science experiment we did, like that's what we did. We used an egg crate. I remember it. You know, so it's like just go take a look.
Popsicle sticks, bamboo sticks with little labels that you print if you need to label your garden for whatever reason. All sorts of stuff. You don't need to go buy the fancy. Use what you have.
Look what you got. Well, cool. I think that's a good way to wrap it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and talking some basic gardening, which is good. A lot of fun. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get into basic gardening. I think you will find mindfulness will come, just like you kind of alluded to at the end, especially when you have it all settled. Maybe stress at first, but mindfulness to come after. If you have any tips or something that you want to share with our community, you can definitely leave it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider hitting that subscribe button, giving us a like, and like I said, leaving us a comment. Let us know what tips you have. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Talon, RyanTaillon. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, they're changing the name so often, I don't even care. Yeah. You get it. You're listening to a podcast. Hit the button that makes good things happen. You know what I'm saying? So other than that, Les?
I am Leslie. You can find me occasionally on Twitter at Leslie Loftus TX. But we're teasing this now. We're getting ready to start a Discord channel. We're getting ready to start a Twitch stream. And frankly, I'm going to be available over there. So if you subscribe to the website, that'll get you an automatic invitation to the Discord channel where we can get together and we can chat and talk. And then we'll notify every time that we actually go live and, start a little bit of, you have some more direct access to us and you can ask questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in closing, like there was a new subscriber that just subscribed either yesterday or this morning, but just in the drought that we had because of all of our COVID complications, we'll call it, just to see like new subscribers coming in and enjoying old content. It's just been really cool. Honestly, just to like see like these things still matter regardless of what time period we use the term evergreen, but so we just want to say thanks for sticking with us through the break. We don't see any content droughts in the future. We're ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
All right. Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.